Uncut and uncensored. With Hell in a Cell, not that long, about, I should say, a week away, or a little over a week away, I believe, a lot of people are pretty much assuming, and I don't think anybody can kid themselves on this, but pretty much a lot of people are assuming that Bray Wyatt, under his new Fiend persona, is going to walk out of Hell in a Cell with the WWE Universal Championship. And they may be correct. I mean, right now, the way Bray's character has been booked, it's been booked to be an almost unstoppable force, even to someone like Braun Strowman and the likes of Kane and many others. And people might even be saying that the best way you can really get him over as a big threat, as someone that seems to be unstoppable, is to have him attack the legends of Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan on the season premiere of Raw. Now, that could really get him over, because you would have him suddenly attack both Flair and Hogan at the same time and look dominant, even attack someone like The Miz along with them. And yeah, that could really get him over days away from Hell in a Cell. However, though, this is where I'm going to have to rain down a little bit of people's parade. Because even though it makes sense in the long run to put the belt on Bray and thus set up a potential interpromotional champion versus champion match with Brock Lesnar, who's scheduled to face Kofi a week from this Friday on SmackDown on their debut episode on Fox, even though Bray winning that championship potentially sets that scenario up, which could really sell tickets for Survivor Series, I think it's emanating from the Staples Center or somewhere, I don't really know. But it could really, cause ticket sales to flourish, because you would have the Fiend, who is basically being built and pushed as this unstoppable force, going up against the Beast, who, with a few unfortunate notches on his belt, is also looked at as an unstoppable force. And the story builds itself, that the Fiend, this new persona, Bray Wyatt's, can do the one thing that not even the Undertaker could really do, and that's put fear into Brock Lesnar. That's basically cause him to run off in fear. And, question like, what am I getting myself into? Who is this guy? What's happening? You could do that. And in the long run, it could also make him look dominant if you have him try to attack Brock, to kind of establish that not only is he the more powerful persona, but he's the more powerful champion. That in itself, again, the potential matchup there, definitely would sell tickets. There's no doubt about it. However, like I said, I don't want to rain on people's parade here. But right now, what's going on with the Fiend is they're setting him up for a feud beyond Seth. Now, whether or not that feud is for the Universal Championship or it isn't, they're setting him up to feud with someone else. And that someone right now is Braun Strowman. And I know you're thinking they wouldn't do that. They would not do that, would they? Oh, yes, they would. Because here's what I think the scenario is being played out. There are no reports just yet. There are no hints or indications just yet that Bray is going to walk out with the Universal Championship at Hell in a Cell. Not saying that it won't happen, because the setting, the name of the event and all that is perfectly groomed for that moment to happen. So, whether or not it does, that's on WWE to try to follow up on it. Now, with that said, again, the way it's being set up now, because it's been like a couple of times already he's attacked Braun, that I think they're setting Braun up to go into the match and cost Bray the match. That's what I'm thinking. Again, I could be wrong, and I know I sound like I'm rambling, but the point that I'm getting at is I just don't think WWE's ready to put the belt on Bray yet. I don't think it's possible. Because one, if you're going to set up Bray versus The Undertaker, which looks like it could be the match they're aiming for WrestleMania, you can't tell me it's not. If they're setting that up as Undertaker finally passing the torch to someone that's identical to the way he is and was, then right now is not the best case scenario. Because here's why. If you put the belt on Bray and you let him hold it to Mania and you set it up to where he's got to face The Undertaker or even the Demon Finn Balor, then it's a no-win situation. Because knowing Vince McMahon, he's going to want to book The Undertaker in possibly his last match to walk out and retire on top as Universal Champion. You know that, I know that. Finn Balor, on the other hand, coming back as the Demon, or facing Bray as the Demon, that could make sense if they want to build towards that moment. It could make sense then to put the belt on Bray then. But then again, you have other opportunities as you get closer to Mania. Other opportunities include Survivor Series if they want to. Other opportunities could involve TLC. Other opportunities could involve the Royal Rumble. You know, all these different scenarios, all these different cases that could be made for when Bray eventually becomes champion. Again, I'm not saying that it won't happen at Hell in the Cell. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying, and this is the honest truth, is knowing how WWE is, right now it's too soon. And I know people might argue that. And they say, no, it's not too soon. It's perfect. Strike while the opportunity is there. Strike while the handle is hot, if you will. And again, I agree with that, but the point is this. The point is this, and I'm going to make it perfectly clear to you guys. I'm not saying that I would not like to see Bray walk out as WWE Universal Champion. I'm not saying that. You know, the environment, the event, everything fits the opportunity to be done. But if you're going to do that, you might as well also have Sasha Banks, and probably eventually will, beat Becky Lynch for the championship, for the Raw Championship. And if that happens, fine. Then that would make sense for Seth to drop his. But I don't think it's going to happen because, one, as crazy as this sounds, or as ludicrous as this sounds, you know, recently Becky and Seth ended up on Muscle and Fitness magazine. Becky is one of the cover stars of 2K20. So I don't think right now is the best time for WWE to put the belt on Bray. And I think, honestly, my opinion, I think they're realizing that too. Unless reports come out from people like Mike Johnson, Fightful.com, RingsideNews.com, and many others, unless reports come out that Bray is going to walk out with the championship, that's what they're planning to do, so they can build to Bray versus Brock at Survivor Series, then okay, fine, it makes sense. But I don't think the time is right now. I think honestly what they're going to do is this, and this might sound crazy, and I know people don't want to see it again, but I think honestly they're going to put Seth against Brock if Brock goes over Kofi. And they're going to build towards that because, one, Seth has beaten Brock twice for the championship, right? Okay. So Brock, he's, what is he, like 2-1 or 1-2 against Seth? He's going to want to get his win back. And if it's a non-title scenario, then there you go. At least non-title scenario, you have an excuse to give Brock his win back. And you could also use that maybe to build to Seth dropping the belt to Bray at the next pay-per-view, which could be TLC for all we know. Again, I'm not saying that Bray won't walk out with the championship at Hell in a Cell, but I think right now there's too much going on with him. One, he's getting involved in multiple feuds or multiple angles, which from a story perspective will come back and bite him. You know, one of the big ones being Braun Strowman. And who's to say they won't do an angle where Braun cost him the match, and then, while Seth is trying to hold him down, Braun takes the mask off, and then the Mr. Rogers version of Bray, you know, touches his face, realizing his mask is gone, and runs off. Who's to say they won't do a story to where Bray needs the mask, because without it, he's just regular Bray Wyatt that doesn't know what to do. He's lost. I'm just saying. But who's to say it won't be Braun that cost him the match? Remember, he also has a situation going on with Finn Balor. Again, there are multiple situations, multiple angles that he's involved in right now that just kind of goes against the idea of Bray walking out with the championship. Again, I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm not saying WWE won't pull the trigger, because a Bray Wyatt, the Fiend, versus the Beast, Brock Lesnar, interpromotional champion versus champion match is enticing. It is. I'm not saying it's not. But we'll have to wait and see. Because there's multiple scenarios that build, like I said, that come out of the possibility of Bray winning the championship. We all know we're building towards Wyatt and Undertaker at WrestleMania, Fiend versus the Phenom. We know there's a possibility that Bray could face the Demon. So the question is, how do we get to those scenarios? Do we get to that scenario with Finn Balor as the Demon at WrestleMania, if not sooner, with the Universal Championship on the line? Or do we get to that scenario with the Undertaker where it's just about a passing of the torch? Because if you have the Fiend as the Universal Champion going into WrestleMania against Taker, again, like I said earlier, knowing Vince McMahon, he's going to want Taker to go over. He's not going to want someone like the Fiend, unless Undertaker says, put him over me, which he could probably do. He's not going to want someone like Bray Wyatt, who he still probably looks at as not being believable against someone like Taker, going over Taker on the biggest stage of all. Again, I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm not saying that won't happen. But the thing is, right now, ladies and gentlemen, I think a lot of us can agree that it's not out of the realm of possibility that it will happen, that Bray won't walk out of Hell in a Cell with the championship. I'm not saying he won't. But I think we can all agree that right now it's just a little too soon for the Fiend persona, not Bray himself, but the Fiend persona to be the top guy. Just because you believe he needs a title to be the top guy to really solidify his dominance and everything, that's fine. If you want to believe that's going to help. But sometimes, most of the time, you don't need a championship. You could just, your persona itself helps you become iconic, helps you become someone that's going to be remembered throughout time. I mean, Piper, look at Roddy Piper. He never wanted to be a champion. They put the Intercontinental Championship on him because they knew his match with Bret Hart would be one of the reasons people sell out WrestleMania 8. And again, I'm not saying that they won't try to do something with Bray and Brock, but we'll have to wait and see what comes about that. But to me, I think obviously the direction they may, and again I could be wrong, that they will go in for for Survivor Series at least, is Seth and Brock 3, with Seth losing to Brock, making it 2-2. I'm just saying, guys. I'm just saying, again, I'm not saying that I'm going to be correct. I'm just looking at what possibly could be in the scenario right now that they got Bray as the Fiend in. He's got two feuds he's going into, Braun and Finn. He's got a possible angle and feud lined up for Mania against Taker. All these scenarios have to play a factor. Again, now, I'm not saying that Bray won't be the champion. I'm not. But I think what's happening right now is they want to clear things up. They want to make things different. They want to make things, well, not different, but they basically want to clear things up to where they got a straight and narrow path, an idea of where they're heading. Because remember, there's an old saying that a lot of people hate to admit. At the end of the day, it's Vince McMahon that has the final say. It's Vince McMahon that has the final say. So, with that said, though, guys, that's all I'm going to say. I got to get ready for work here, and I will talk to you later. But let me know what you all think down below.